You don't know ball show take 2. Yeah, we just filmed a little bit, but had to restart for some reasons that we won't disclose. But all right, we are continuing our conference preview series, and as you can tell by the title, we are looking at the Big 12. We're diving in to the Big 12 conference. We've already done the ACC. We've already done the Big 10. If you haven't watched those episodes, go check it out. And as you can tell, if this is your first time here, my name is Sam. I am joined by Joe. We preview the college football. We react to college football every single week. And as we're in the preseason, we're doing these conference previews to get us ready and geared up for week 1 that's starting soon. Week 0 is starting next week. And we do got a Big 12 team that's going to be playing in that doubling game. So we'll definitely have to stay tuned for that one and see what we expect there. It's like, man, we're hitting the we're getting fast into it, man, and I'm pretty excited for it. I can't wait for football to start up. A lot of exciting stuff going to be coming, at least on the pages. And yeah, so at the Big 12, I guess we can touch on just some of the high level takes. If we looked at ACC, it was one of those conferences where it's Miami at the top, and then after that, it was wide open in a sense. You can really make an argument for any other, like there's a lot of middle of the pack tier teams that can make some noise and even compete with Miami in sort of the title game. Maybe not compete with Miami, but at least put up a fight. And the Big 10, when you look at their conference, it's very top heavy. You got a handful of contending teams that can really make a playoff. And then below that, it's a lot of mid, a lot of scrubs. And where I'm getting at with the Big 12, it just feels like a conference, and a lot of people have been saying it's Texas Tech and BYU. And after that, it's a whole lot of unproven. Like, nobody really knows who else is going to make a spark there. And I kind of got to agree. I think it's Texas Tech's conference to lose, kind of like Miami. And you got BYU there that's putting up a fight. But as I've at least, maybe my mind will change once we get into the teams again. But as I did my research on it, Texas Tech is going to win this conference. I don't really see a world where they don't, unless they get hit with a lot of different injuries on the defensive side. And yeah, Joe, what's your kind of take as you were going through this conference first?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like you said, 2-horse race, Texas Tech, Brigham Young. I guess I might have a different opinion on who's going to end up winning the conference. I guess the question.
Okay.
I guess the question in Lubbock is, and I heard someone talking about this. I forget which podcast it was, but it's like when you think of Texas Tech last year, everything went right in a sense of first-year head coach, all the new talent. Yes, the quarterback, I guess the personnel changed there a little bit. So you could argue that went wrong, but in terms of everything else, went perfect. Like David Bailey, massive hit. Jacob Rodriguez was like a Heisman candidate. The defense was unreal. So is everything going to go right again? That would be the question in Lubbock. So there's questions at the quarterback position, which is always can be concerning. Obviously, Texas Tech, loaded roster, unlimited money. So that would be the one concern with them. And then, like you said, after that, big drop-off. I do think there are some teams that could make the conference interesting. I guess it was in our first take. We talked about Oklahoma State at the beginning. They bring over the best personnel from the best offense in the country last year. Yes, it was in the American Conference, but I'm super intrigued. I think Drew Mestemaker's a stud as a freshman last year, passed for over 4,000 yards, the running back, the receiver. And then there's another one that we'll get into. When we touch on them, I'll go into depth about why I think they will have success this year. But yeah, excited to get into it. And then just one more Saturday till college football. So couldn't be more fired up. And then Sam, I think you should plug the tour real quick.
Yeah, guys. So one more thing before we dive into the conference preview of the Big 12. If you haven't been following our pages at WildcardNet, we got a lot of exciting stuff coming for the college football season. For example, we're going on the Learn Ball Tour is what I'm calling it. So we're going to be going to a college football game almost every weekend, every other weekend to start in September. We're going to be going to Baton Rouge for the LSU Clemson game. Pumped for that one. Then we're going to be going to Austin, Ohio State, Texas. And then the third week, or is it the fourth week of September, we'll be in LA for Oregon, USC. So that's a stacked lineup in September. I know my girlfriend's pretty pissed that I'm going to be spending a lot of time, but hey, man, it's college football season, nothing like it. And then October, we got a bunch of other games, but we're going to be dropping like a schedule. I know leg one has already been confirmed. So October, we got a couple other matchups. We're going to be going at the Whiteout. Me and Joe will be there. Penn State, USC. and also Ohio State, Indiana. So we're going to all the big games. Our goal with it is just to create as much content as possible and get our show out there, and obviously the brand of Wildcard Sports out there a little bit more. We're going to be doing some content with some fan interviews, doing some post-game, pre-game reaction shows at the stadium outside, maybe even just touring the campus, trying like the most popular food spot, just a bunch of different stuff to integrate what college football is all about, right? The experience, the fan base, the games. There's just nothing like it. The passion that schools have for their team in football. I think it's the best. I think that's why I love the USA. I'm not gonna lie. I went on a trip to Poland this summer with me and my mom, and as I'm out in Poland, it's like they all rooted for soccer. I know soccer is a big sport, but soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. But it just, when I was there, it was like, what do people really watch growing up? And like there was just no like American football. They didn't know what that was. Even baseball or basketball, they didn't really follow that. And it's just mind blowing me how to live in a country where you don't have football. And that's why you shouldn't take these Saturdays for granted, man. There's nothing like it. And I am pumped for all the special content that we're going to be bringing to you all season. And that's also the NFL. I mean, we got a lot of NFL stuff to do as well, but it's going to be busy, very busy time. As I mentioned on the show before, I just started doing this content stuff full time and going full on Wildcard Sports, and can't wait to bring it to you guys. So, yeah, I figured I got to get that on the record before we dive into this preview. So, this is your first time tuning in, and make sure you subscribe as well. As we go into the full season on the show, we're going to be doing one reaction show, one prediction show. Reaction show is probably going to be on like a Sunday right after the games. We're going to give our hot takes, what happened. And then prediction show is going to be during the week where we'll go over our predictions for the games. And we'll also be highlighting like the game of the week, which will be the game that we are attending. A lot of different fun segments coming on that.
Yeah, love doing the previews, but I cannot wait to get into actual breakdowns of games that are on the upcoming Saturday. Conference previews are great, but I can't wait for that.
Yeah, no. So the thing with these conference previews is it's a lot of. I mean, we're previewing teams that we're not really going to talk about again for the rest of the year. Let's be honest. So it's a lot of work on us. I mean, even the amount of time that we spent on the previews, at least the research wise. Sometimes I'm thinking to myself, should I really be spending a lot of time on this when I could be doing other content? But I think it's important to at least have some knowledge on each team in the FBS, like the Power Four. So that's why I think it is good, and it's good to give context to some of the fans that want to hear at least our takes on it. So I think I think that's very important. But once we get into the full heart of the season, that's when it's actually really, really enjoyable to talk about, give our raw reactions and stuff. Like I want to do it on Sunday so that we're flying home Saturday night after the game. I made an effort that every morning, so you're going to be getting fresh. Had a couple hours to think about it, but it's going to be like raw reactions from our takes, and got a couple segments. Me and Joe have been talking about what we can do to make some reoccurring specials on each show. We're also planning on bringing a lot of guests on the show. So this will probably be one of the last times you see just me and Joe on it, just because I think it's important to get some other guys to hop on there and provide some of their unique takes every now and then with the show. So like I said, theme from that, a lot of special things coming your way. But with that, all right, I think it's time that we can get into the actual episode, the Big 12 conference preview. So, Joe, how do you want to start by previewing these teams? Should we do by their record last year or projected record? Because I don't really have the projected records. I have in my mind, I think I have a idea on where they're projected.
I would say like projections.
Okay.
I guess we don't have our tiers like laid out for this one. So if you just want to go by like tier, however you name the team, and then we can rip through it.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So I didn't make any tiers the previous two ACC conferences and the Big Ten conference videos. We did 4 or 5 tiers: scrubs, whole lot of mid, could be contending, but long shot, contending tiers. I personally didn't really do that with the Big 12 just because, like I said, there a lot of those categories didn't really fit to some of these teams, in my opinion.
For sure.
So I think it's safe to say that we can go from just projected. I'll tell you off the bat, or I guess we can wait before we get to the end and you'll see the big tiers. But we can call this first group of teams that we talk about the scrubs. Okay. So I think it's safe to say that the first team, at least in the scrubs list, that I want to start with is UCF. So UCF is not going to really go anywhere special in my opinion this year. They went 5-7 last year, 2-7 in the conference with wins over West Virginia and Oklahoma State. UCF, they allow just 5.1 yards per play in the Big 12. They are bringing back 7 key defensive guys. That's on the defensive side. They allowed 5 yards per play. So they have a strong defense, but it was their offense. I mean, last year, they scored half their points for the entire season in 3 wins versus West Virginia, UNC, and NC A&T. So outside of those 3 games, they were pretty brutal, stalling on a lot of different drives. Couldn't pick up third downs. They were shuffling quarterbacks, didn't really have consistency at that position, and they missed out on a bowl game. You look at their outlook for this year, head coach Scott Frost, he's going on season 2. Their quarterback is going to be Alonze Barnett. He's transferring in from JMU. We've seen him in the playoff. He looked a little bit, they put up, how many points they put up versus Oregon? 30, 40? So, like, they were able to move the ball.
Garbage time.
Yeah, it was all garbage time, of course. So, Barnett, he's an explosive playmaker with his legs. He had 15 touchdowns on the ground last season, but from a standard pocket passer, you need to see him in pure drop back scenarios be able to manufacture some first downs on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. He hasn't really proved that. His deep ball was pretty inconsistent, I would say, in the beginning of the year. He struggled with it, got better towards the end of it. I don't know if that's really going to change much when he comes over to UCF. Their wide receiver, their main weapon is going to be the tight end, actually, Dylan Wade. Wade had nearly 900 receiving yards the last 2 years. That's the most of any Power 4 tight end. So they got a good tight end that's coming back. Their offensive line has a lot to put together. Like I mentioned before, though, their defense is returning 7 starters. Got some good cornerback play. I just, on the offensive side of things, I'm not really too high on them. I don't know if this team wins 5 games this year.
Yeah. I agree with you on kind of every front there. I guess what I would add is just Scott Frost. He's an interesting character. Back in Orlando for his second stint at Central Florida. Like you said last year, 5 wins. Is a bowl game considered a success this year? I would probably say so. Because just looking at the roster, I don't see anything that sticks out too much. I guess Barnett, he's interesting, right? Played last year in the playoff. The only reason I had to add in there garbage time is because that was a brutal beat. I just remember watching that one at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have much to add. They play Pittsburgh in the non-con. They go to Pittsburgh. So that's a tough one. You probably say Pittsburgh would be like close to a touchdown favorite there. And then they have BYU. And then they travel to Houston as well. They also go to Stillwater. So they didn't get the easiest draw there. So I don't think there's super high expectations in Orlando this year.
No, they should finish definitely in the bottom tier of the conference. And with them joining in the scrubs tier, also in the bottom of this conference, is going to be the Iowa State Cyclones. Pretty much half their team left to Penn State. If they didn't go to Penn State, they went to some other school. Last season, though, they did go 8-4. They lost to Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, and Cincinnati. They started the season 5-0. I was really high on Iowa State. Thought that they looked pretty elite. I mean, versus the Iowa game, they opened up overseas versus Kansas State, which is when we really saw Rocco Becht ball out as a passer. I thought last year he emerged as like a leader, because the question marks with him with Rocco Becht was, can he prove that he can sling the ball without those 2 NFL receivers and Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins? Proved that, but not to get totally in on Rocco Becht here. But my point with that is Iowa State saw some success last year. They crumbled because of injuries. And you look at them this year, they lost a lot of those good guys again. Quarterback is going to be Jalen Rayner. He's from Arkansas State. I guess he's considered a good leader. I mean, when you lose that much talent in the transfer portal, especially in this days, Iowa State lost a lot of guys. And I guess Rayner has been the glue to this team, keeping the guys together throughout the whole entire offseason. But I don't really know much about him. I mean, the competition that he was playing at Arkansas State isn't very good, so you can't really judge him. He seems like a good dual threat guy. But my bottom line for Iowa State this year, I don't think they make a lot of noise. They should definitely lose to Iowa in some of the other games. I'm not very high on them.
Yeah. As far as the quarterback, that's another Sun Belt quarterback going to the Power 4. I feel like we've had quite a few of those. Who was the Old Dominion quarterback? Where did he end up?
Didn't he go to LSU?
No, I want to say it was in the ACC episode. I think he won like Offensive Player of the Year. I forget where he ended up, but one thing
yeah. Who was that? I'll get back to you on that. Hold up.
Yeah, but the one thing I noticed was a lot of the Sun Belt quarterbacks are taking the step up to the Power 4. Then as far as Iowa State, I actually have like a good amount on them. You got the quarterback?
Yeah, it was Colton Joseph, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally blank
yeah.
out of that. Shouldn't-
Yeah. So something interesting, they hired Jimmy Rogers as the head coach to replace Matt Campbell. He was head coach at Washington State last year. He kind of inherited a weird situation with them. I'm pretty sure they were operating as like an independent last year because of the whole conference realignment. I believe they're in the new Pac-12 now. So he had a weird situation where I think it was like he kind of took the job. People were leaving because it was official that they weren't going to be in a conference. So in terms of comparing that to his tenure now in Iowa State, it's a similar situation. It's a complete overhaul. He lasted 1 year at Washington State. They were actually all right. I think they were projected to be awful. They finished I want to say they finished 6-6 or something. Um, and then just an interesting note on that, they chose Jimmy Rogers over Taylor Mauser, who's now the Penn State offensive coordinator. Rocco Beck said in an interview recently, I don't know if it was with Adam Brenneman or Josh Pate, that if they gave Mauser the job, he would have stayed in Ames.
Mhm.
So
I did see
interesting
that.
choice there. He was at South Dakota State. I want to say he won a natty at South Dakota State, an FCS, and then ended up Washington State. Now he's in Ames. Obviously, complete overhaul, as we said. They lose 78 players, so it's literally a complete overhaul. The quarterback you mentioned, offensive line completely rebuilt. So a lot of moving parts. I guess defensively, the defensive coordinator Jesse Bobbitt brings him from Wazoo. The unit was actually good last year. Ended the season. It was last 9 games, letting up like 14 points per game. So a good unit there, and he brings a lot of personnel with him. So I guess that could be like something to keep an eye on. Overall, I have them finishing 4-8, which is
Hmm.
right. Vegas has it at their win total 4.5. Actually, like minus 158 to the over, so slightly more optimistic than I am. I think Jimmy Rogers will be a success in Ames, just not this year. Too many moving parts. They have BYU. They go to Tucson, to Baylor, to UCF. So just some tough road games there. And then I have my notes here. I have them losing 7 out of their last 8 to end the season.
Hmm.
So yeah, not a great year this year in my opinion, but I actually think that Jimmy Rogers era will end up being decent.
Fair take. All right, I think I got two more teams in the scrubs here. So we had Iowa State in the scrubs here, UCF scrubs. Next, I want to go to Kansas, the Kansas Jayhawks, who last year they went 5-7. They were 3-6 in conference with wins over Oklahoma State, UCF, and West Virginia. So they beat on some of the bottom tiers in the conference last season. No more Jalen Daniels at quarterback, so he's gone. It's going to be it's a quarterback battle right now, wide open comp, but it should be Cole Ballard. I believe he's going to win the starting job. He was a true freshman walk on. Doesn't have a huge skill set. One career start. First, to me, when I was watching something like that in that start, it was a lot of first read. Gross. Wasn't really going through his progressions. Took some unnecessary hits. So I other than that, it's kind of hard to judge him because he hasn't really had a lot of experience. But the thing with me in Kansas is their defense last year was ass. They were losing. They had played in a lot of shootouts. They had a high scoring offense, but they can never close it like late game. Fell apart after losing some guys in 2024 to the NFL draft. So they took a huge step back last season, and I don't know if they got much better coming into this year. You got head coach Lance Leapot. He's going on his 5th season. He's just not shown the ability to make aggressive decisions. He almost plays not to lose, and that's what I think a lot of Kansas fans are frustrated with. So I wouldn't be super confident in him. You got the offensive line, which is decimated. They lost. They were underrated last year, but coming into this season, they lost 3 good pieces at guard, center, and right tackle. You got some guys that are coming in from I believe it's some like pretty decent programs, but that are getting some new opportunities. I know they have a transfer from Cal coming in, but they got a new quarterback that they're going to be protecting. It's going to be a lot to get used to. I don't really mess with this offense that much. I know their wide receiver, Nick McMillan, he's a transfer from Buffalo. He should be a shifty guy that can create good separation. He's probably the one guy to spotlight on that offense. But the defense, man, has got a lot of work, and I think that's what's going to hold him back this year, along with their head coach.
Yeah, what a quote. Their defense was ass last year.
Mm-hmm.
That it's true though. Their defense was brutal. Yeah, I would say for Lance Leipold, it's was I think it was 23 or 24. They won 9 games. They had a great year. People were like, Kansas football could be back after the Les Miles thing. it's been a rough past 2 years for sure. The only other thing I would add is offensive coordinator this year is Andy Koltonicki,
Mm-hmm.
who was the offensive coordinator at Penn State last year, got dismissed like halfway through the year, I think. I honestly forget if he went when James Franklin got fired, but he was just bad at Penn State. He got paid a lot of money, so I guess that has some intrigue for me personally. Other than that, don't have too much. Defense has to be better, as you said. And then just looking at the schedule from last year, they finished 2-6. And then, as you said, the defense was brutal in some of these losses. They're giving up 37, 42, 42, 38. So, yeah, defense has to be better. As far as the schedule this year, I was shocked when I saw this when we were like doing our prep and stuff.
Yeah.
There's games in London this year.
Yeah, they play Arizona State week 3.
Yeah, that's just so wrong. That should not be a thing.
I mean, you lose. So Kansas with that loses a home game
home
as well.
game.
So that's not
It's awful.
ideal.
Yeah, like I hate that. Especially the week 1 thing I can excuse, but week 3, you have them traveling to London, playing in like an iconic soccer stadium called Wembley. But I promise you, they don't care about the Kansas Jayhawks and Arizona State.
That's the thing, though. Like, what's the deal with all these college football teams now going overseas? I understand the NFL because the NFL global brand. You want to, like Roger Goodell, he wants to expand to global markets. I'm cool with the whole international tour that the NFL does, but college football, we just talked about it beforehand. These countries that are overseas, they don't give a shit about American football. They really don't. We're trying to grow the game, and especially at the college level. Like it takes a little bit of adjustment. I don't understand why you're taking away a home game from, for example, in Kansas, Arizona State's example. A lot of these Kansas students, they're missing out on a home game that they could be celebrating and having a good time. But no, we're going to London. None of those students nobody has the money in college to go make a trip out to London. If you do, you probably want to save that for spring break anyways. So I don't really necessarily agree with that from the college level. The NFL, I understand it, but why are we doing the London and the Dublin games? It's kind of confusing to me.
No, I mean, you said like they don't care about American football. I mean, they might show some intrigue to the NFL, but I promise you that Kansas and Arizona State just not moving.
Especially Kansas and Arizona State. Like,
come on, man. And yeah, it's like let me leave like Scottsdale and like let's go to London in September. It's like absolutely not.
Exactly.
So
what
yeah,
did
I
Notre
that.
Dame play international game? I forget. Did they play a Dublin game?
I don't think so.
Or I thought they were scheduled to play. So they did play a Dublin game in 2023 versus Navy.
Okay.
I don't mind a team like Notre Dame because they're a little more global. Like a Notre Dame Navy, I can justify that.
Yeah.
Kansas, Arizona State.
That's what I was gonna say. Like if you're gonna do that, you need to find 2 teams who are respectable, agree to it, and if you want to give them that product, that's fine. But like just throwing this random, like arguably like mid at best Big 12 game, throwing it in London, I hate it.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, they go to Manhattan to play Kansas State, and then they go to Morgantown, and they end the year with in Morgantown, home against BYU, and then to Oklahoma State. So the schedule doesn't really give them any favors. I have them 4-8. So yeah, I think it's another rough year. I guess it'd be interesting. Does the administration kind of make a move on Lance Leipold? Probably not, because I mean he's had the best season in like program history, at least one of the best 2 years ago when they went 9-4. I would say he's probably safe, barring an abomination of like a 1-win season or something. So yeah, nothing of note with Kansas.
All right, let's move off of Kansas and round out the scrubs here, and that's going to be Cincinnati. So, Joe, I'll let you touch on Cincinnati, the Brendan Sorsby-less Cincinnati Bearcats. What can fans expect from them this season?
Yeah, I mean, what they can expect, I guess we'll see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Head coach Scott Satterfield entering his 4th season. Something I found in each of his first 3 seasons, they've improved by 2 games. I don't see that happening this year. Obviously, they lose Brendan Sorsby. Quite the spectacle that was. Interested to see if we ever get some concrete evidence or proof as to what actually happened there. If the Cincinnati administration was, leaking some information or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
We have a QB competition at this point. Last thing I read is JC French from Georgia Southern is leading that and will most likely end up being the starter. The other guys are Samaj Jones and then Liam O'Brien. He's from Penn. So, like I said, I've read JC French kind of leading the job. They expect him to start week one. Um, they do lose a lot of production in the skill room. Um, Noah Jennings, Jeff Caldwell. They bring in some transfers there, and then kind of the same at the running back position. Skill room's going to look pretty different. I guess one highlight for the offense they bring back two guys who were all Big 12 last year. Not going to try and say this one guy's last name, Evan last name, couldn't pay me to say it.
Yeah.
And then Joe Cotton. Like I said, they were all Big 12 last year. So I guess that's the highlight for a quarterback who's stepping up a conference. You got a decent offensive line. New defensive coordinator who was at West Point the past 6 years. So that's an interesting get. Nate Woody. They lose some guys. A lot of reshuffle on the defensive end there. Last year, 7-6, and then I want to say they ended the season 0-4. Did Sorsby get hurt last year at the end?
Did he? I don't remember him getting hurt.
Yeah, I feel like when I was like going through my prep, I didn't like look into it, but I feel like I just remembered. They ended 0-4 and they lost the bowl game to Navy. I'm assuming no one really played in the bowl game because that's
I
just
think
kind
some
how
of
it
the
is.
other pieces got hurt around Brendan Sorsby. Let me double
Yeah, I just
check
feel like they were
that.
banged up because they were in a good spot, and I just remember they kind of collapsed on the stretch. Um, this year the non-con is pretty weak. It's Boston College, Western Carolina, Miami, Ohio. So maybe they get out to that good start. But there's a stretch in the middle of the season. I have them going 1-6. It includes Kansas State, Arizona, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Utah, Houston, Iowa State, at Iowa State.
Hmm.
So despite the weak non-conference, I have them going 5-7. Honestly, Cincinnati might be one of the least interesting teams in the country in terms of like the previews we've done. Just doesn't really move the needle. Can't say I'm penciling in 3.5 hours on the couch to watch them exclusively.
No.
But we'll see what happens.
Like you just said, Cincinnati is going to be one of the least interesting teams in the country. So with that, let's stop talking about them. Let's move on to the next tier. So that's going to round up the scrubs here. We got 4 teams in there. We'll go to our next tier, which I call a whole lot of mid. It's the mid teams. Nothing that you can really expect from them, but I guess they're not just total gimme wins. And I want to start with West Virginia, and I was kind of on the fence. Are they a scrub or can they be somewhat competitive? And I think they could be somewhat competitive. So last year, their teams are built on the run game. Head coach Rich Rodriguez, he's entering his second year. They just want to run it down their throats, ground and pound type. And they got a trio of freshman running backs that should provide a spark. They also got Cam Cook, who's like their veteran. So it's almost like they got a senior back that's leading the way with 3 freshmen right behind him. Cam Cook, he breaks a lot of tackles, forced missed tackles on 40% of his carries last season. 1,100 yards after contact. That was second to only Ahmad Hardy at Missouri. And for those of you who don't know, Ahmad Hardy is at least my top running back in the nation. So that's a pretty good category to be in. At the quarterback position, they're going with Michael Hawkins. You might remember him from Oklahoma last season. He was the backup that filled in a little bit for John Mateer. I think he fits well into the system. It's going to be very run heavy, a lot of option game. Fits right into Michael Hawkins. Any sort of obvious passing down, though, where he's got to take a 5-step drop back, it definitely needs work. And I'm assuming that over the offseason, he might have spent some time on that. But given West Virginia's offense is run heavy, how much time is he really spending? So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in a new program. Because last year, West Virginia fans is going to be a whole different breath of fresh air because they had 5 different quarterbacks throw a pass for them. So it's definitely going to be a lot better from an aspect of they got some consistency at the position. And then on the defensive side, there's so many new people coming in. Linebacker core should be the strength. They got 6 guys there, but just a lot of moving parts, a lot of new pieces. I'm not really sure how that's all going to fit together yet.
Yeah, just in like a random note thing here, going through the defense of their portal gets bunch of different schools: Georgia
Mhm.
State, Wisconsin, FAU, Illinois, Coastal, Oregon. So kind of a theme with a lot of these middling programs, throwing pieces together, and we'll see if it works out. The only other thing I'll add is like I think Rich Rod's actually really interesting guy with like you look at his stint in Morgantown. I feel like once a week I get a TikTok of Pat McAfee in the game that would have sent them to the national title where he misses like 3 extra points.
Hmm.
That was Rich Rod. So we'll see if he can get kind of some of that mojo back to Morgantown. Like you said, I don't have too much to add. Schedule. Let's see. They have to go to Lubbock. But other than that, no BYU. They get Houston at home. So maybe they get hot. Some things go their way. Could be a decent season, but yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it's a shame. They should be good. I feel like the atmosphere at those games would be cool if they brought in
That place
one of
would
the top
rock.
100%. So hopefully they can get back on track. Probably not this year, not looking like it, but maybe the next couple of years. See what happens there. All right, next team I want to get to. Let's go to Colorado, actually. So is Deion Sanders, is he on the hot seat? And it's interesting, too, because I saw that he's got to deal with Shiloh Sanders, who was he's dealing with some legal trouble right now. I don't have the exact details pulled up, but I know that there's question marks on if he's going to be available for their not home opener, but their opener versus, do they play Georgia State to start the year? Let me pull that up real quick. So Colorado opens the season at Georgia Tech. There's question marks if Deion's going to be available to play that game because he's got to go testify. So he was subpoenaed for this Shiloh Sanders trial. And let me see if I can pull up a article to kind of explain it for you because I don't have it.
I got you,
right
Sam.
here. Yeah.
Essentially, Shiloh's got like a bankruptcy issue here.
Okay.
Let's see. The officer was informed. So it says showed up to serve Deion's civil papers at an open practice. Deion tried to inform them he was unavailable at the time to receive a receipt of the papers. He's being subpoenaed to testify as part of a bankruptcy trial involving his son Shiloh that begins August 31st. Yeah, so like, what I didn't know about this.
So that's the thing with Deion. I mean, this isn't that big of a deal from him as a coaching aspect. It is going to be a little thing to watch if he's not going to be able to coach at Georgia Tech because that is kind of a big out of conference game. I mean, I remember last year was a close game. Haynes King went on a walk-off touchdown. But with that, when we talk about is Deion on the hot seat this season, I mean, let's be honest. The coach prime effect wore off really, really fast. You look at some of the TV ratings on ESPN. They actually just came out the other day. A lot of those ratings for Colorado have dropped because who really wants to tune into Colorado now? Their team's not very good after Shedeur Sanders left. And even when Shedeur was there towards the latter half, they weren't really performing at a very high level. I mean, you think back to when Deion's first game, it was TCU, and they got that insane upset as 21-point underdogs. And you thought, holy shit, this is legit. Ever since that moment, it's kind of been downhill. And we talk about Deion coming in. They were a 3-win team, brings them to, they were 9-4 in the peak Shedeur season. But then, I mean, you look at someone like Kurt Cignetti that brought a 2-3-win team in Indiana to the national championship undefeated. So there's a lot of debate on that if Deion should be sticking at his job. I don't think he's really on the hot seat, but if he has another really extremely underperforming season, then you can have some debate because I feel like Colorado right now is a school for guys to transfer in for one and done year just to like rebound. It's almost like Colorado's getting everyone sloppy seconds and people leave the next year. That's just kind of how it feels in my vibe.
Yeah, they're operating like a Power 4 JUCO.
Exactly.
We can cut to the chase about that one. Just real quick before I get into this year, like I said, I did not know about this lawsuit. It says Shiloh Sanders remains in litigation over a lawsuit stemming from an incident with a security guard when he was in high school. The guard filed a lawsuit against Sanders and was issued a default judgment when Sanders didn't show up for his court date. What a wild situation there.
Bro, can you imagine being a player on Colorado and you just see some, I don't know who pulls up. Is it a police officer pull up and just subpoena Deion mid-practice? It's like, imagine if he's calling a play. Like, imagine he's standing behind the offense right now and someone just pulls up and serves him. It's like, yeah,
it's got to
hilarious.
limp over. Yeah. So, and then the other thing I was going to add, that 9-4 Colorado team might be one of the most fascinating college football teams of all time. Just because of, I don't know if anybody knew how to, like from Vegas perspective, how do you value them?
No. Yeah, that was nuts.
They were completely misvalued. And then they beat TCU as big dogs, and I want to say they beat Nebraska the next week as big dogs too.
Mm-hmm.
So that was quite interesting. Vividly remember that. Just getting into this year, I think this is probably it for Dion. I don't think it would ever be a thing where it comes out that Colorado's fired Deion Sanders. I think it will be Dion stepped away type of thing.
Right.
Something, that's been a constant with Dion in his few years in Boulder, as you mentioned. They operate like a JUCO. So complete overall, 2 new coordinators, 40 new transfers. The new offensive coordinator, so they move on from Pat Shermer, a guy with NFL pedigree who honestly got his name drugged through the water at Colorado. Don't know why. He's probably doing Dion a favor. The new guy, Brennan Marion, listen to this, Sam. 14th job in 16 years.
Really?
So I guess he fits the mold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he fits the mold for what Colorado's looking for.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, the one constant they do have, Julian Lewis, a quarterback. I will say he probably should have been starting all season. I know he was like a young freshman or whatever, but I forget some of the names that they had playing quarterback prior. But I remember that Houston game specifically.
Yeah, and Keon or Salters was the other quarterback. I'm not a huge fan of Juju. I think we need to see a little bit more of him. He's definitely talented, but he just hasn't put the pieces together. Maybe another year of experience in the offseason is going to help him. But I wasn't impressed. He just seemed very raw last year to me.
For sure. Yeah, he had like 2 decent starts at the end of the season. So I would say, like, if you're going to be optimistic about them, it would have to revolve around the quarterback. We'll see what he has. Other than that, completely new skill room. They bring in a guy from San Jose State, Miami, Ohio. DeAndre Moore from Texas. I would say that's like the big get in the skill room. And then offensive line, I mean, they lose the best offensive line prospect in the portal, Jordan Seaton. So that's brutal. Defense, new coordinator as well, former Virginia Tech coordinator, Chris Marv. They really only returned 2 guys who played like real football last year. I would say I did read this. They bring in 5 transfer linemen who made at least 9 tackles for loss last year. So I guess we'll see how that works out for them. Defense has to be better. And then this is the highlight of Colorado football. They bring in a linebacker, I believe from Bowling Green. This is the best name in college football. I don't know if you saw this, Sam. Gideon ESPN Lampron.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I was listening to a story about why his dad named my bad, I just hit the camera. So his dad, I guess, was when he was when his wife was giving birth to him, he took the birth certificate and slipped on ESPN on there without his mom knowing. And so he did that. Oh, like, I don't know, the whole story with it, he knew that from that day he had to go pro because, like, how do you have the middle name of ESPN and not be a superstar athlete of some sorts? So I thought that was kind of funny. I couldn't imagine, like, I guess he goes by Espen informally, but obviously everyone in the football world is going to call him ESPN. Crazy name, though. Like, I mean, you got to be a stud then. Yeah.
That's the highlight of the program this year, in my opinion. And it's like ESPN in all caps, too.
Yeah.
So that's good. The defense in the backfield, defensive backfield, Boo Carter from Tennessee. I'd say that's a highlight. And then just going over last year, 3-9, 1 win in the Big 12, 5 straight losses at the end of the year. So kind of a theme. I feel like we said it a few times. When some of these teams just don't have it, they typically, people are giving up and really just worrying about their dialogue with their agent about who's got the most money for them next year. 2 blowout losses to end the year, 53-7. At Utah and then 52-17 at home to U of A. This year, the non-con, pretty tough actually, to Georgia Tech and then at Northwestern. I had in my notes, they could split them. We talked about in the Big Ten preview, I think that Northwestern game will kind of be like a pick 'em, so we'll see what happens. Then overall, I got them 3-9 this year, finishing with 4 straight losses, and then in my notes it says Dion moves on after this year. So that's what I got.
That's fair. All right, let's keep moving forward. I know, guys, you want to hear our takes on, obviously, the big dogs in this conference, but we got to try to get through these more mid teams. And next, let's go to the Baylor Bears. So you got Dave Aranda on the hot seat. I put out a hot seat rankings, and he's definitely the one up there. I just feel like a lot of the coaching decisions that he made over the season, over the years for Baylor, haven't been well justified. I keep thinking back to week 1 when Baylor played Auburn, and they had a legitimate shot to win that game. They had a lot of talent at wide receiver. Sawyer Robinson was a great quarterback, but it was just like they were going for it on 4th down when they could have just kicked the field goal. They were a lot of the play call at the end of the game and the clock management was not very good, and so that falls on your coaching staff. So that's why I have Aranda, especially with him underperforming like he has. They need a quick turnaround. Joe, what can you tell about this Baylor team? What are some key players to look for?
Yeah, well, it all starts with the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more surprising portal gets is DJ Lagway coming from Gainesville.
Yeah.
If you would have told me going into the season last year that next year DJ Lagway will be in Waco, Texas, starting quarterback for the Baylor Bears, wouldn't have believed you. So I think it's a big year for DJ if he wants to maintain like any NFL stock. It's kind of been, I mean, quarterbacks have had success at Baylor. As you said, Sawyer Robertson he was incredible last year, and the offense was too. If you look at some of the points scored in their games lost, Auburn 24, against Arizona State 24, against TCU 36,
Mm-hmm.
Utah 28. So like the offense is great. The defense was horrible, and for Dave Aranda, that's why he is on the hot seat. He's a defensive guy, and his defenses have consistently been an abomination. 67th in scoring defense since 2021 when they won the Big 12, and 122nd last year. They bring in a new defensive coordinator, Joe Klanderman from Kansas State, and then a lot of portal guys as well. So we'll see. In my notes I have, it looks like there's going to be at least 6 new defensive starters. So this is going to be the key. Like consistently, offenses have been good at Baylor. Is the defense going to be at least formidable and give them a chance to win some of these games? You can't be losing games when you score 36 points. Yeah, and then going into this schedule, end of the season again, 1-5 with blowout losses to Utah at home, on the road Arizona. This year the Auburn game, they have the second leg of it. This year it's at home, I believe, and I think they're big underdogs. So not doesn't look good there. Week 7 TCU, it's a rivalry game. Then they end the season with the 3 best teams in the conference, in my opinion, at Brigham Young, Texas Tech at home, at Houston. So I have those as the best 3 teams in the conference. So brutal way to end the year. I think I'm a bit more bullish on them because call me great. I still believe in DJ Lagway a little bit. So I have them at like 7-5. I could see 8-4. Vegas has the win total at 6.5. So I think I'm a little more bullish. I think if they go under that win total, 6.5, even if it's 6 wins, they play in like the Fenway Bowl, which we've talked about before, the Wasabi Bowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they could move on from Dave Aranda. So I would say he's got to win at least 7 games to save his job.
That's fair. Yeah, I have an interesting DJ Lagway take that I'm going to hit you with once we get to the latter half of the show, and you'll see why. But I've always thought he was an overrated guy, even coming in last year. I mean, he was a freshman. Everyone was giving him unneeded high, like a lot of high expectations for a guy that's only made some freshman starts. So never super high on him, and we saw last year why. So okay, that's going to. So I actually have one more team in this mid tier that I want to touch on really quick, and that's going to be TCU. So TCU last season, they obviously don't have our guy Josh Hoover. He's over at Indiana. So it's going to be a new quarterback for TCU, and it's actually a guy out of Harvard. So interesting. Jaden Craig. That's how you say his last name, right? Jaden Craig.
Yep.
Yeah. So
they
got
6,000 yards, 52 touchdown passes. He's like the school's best quarterback of all time. So interesting piece.
Mhm. So yeah, it's going to be last season TCU. They went 9-4, losses to BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and ASU. They did beat a ranked USC team in the Alamo Bowl. I just don't really know much about this defense of TCU. Can they kind of repeat some of the success? I feel like they lost a decent amount of guys. And as far as this offense, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't touch too much on them. I don't really see TCU as a true middle of the pack team. I think they're just there for at least in my aspect. I'm not very high on them. I know they had success last year, but missing Josh Hoover, I think he was a key part to that success. I know turnovers were an issue for him, but there's no way that Jaden Craig is going to be able to repeat his the word I'm looking for his
Production. I mean, the Ivy League to the
Exactly.
Big 12 is quite the leap.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you take the leap and you pray if you're TCU. Sonny Dykes going into his 5th year. I was shocked to see they won 9 games last year. I don't know if it's because the expectations were higher. We're still kind of holding them to the standard of appearing in a national title game with Max Dugan
Mm-hmm.
and that group. I guess the only other thing I would add is they lose Evan McAllister, had like 1,000 yards last year. They do bring back Jordan Dwyer. He had like 700 yards last year, so they maintain some production there. And as you said, I don't have much other than that. I guess from the schedule this year, week 1 in Ireland, that's like the only international game that there should be. We touched
Mm-hmm.
on that earlier. They have Brigham Young at home, West Virginia. They end the year at Tech. So they get the 2 best teams in the Big 12 in their schedule. I feel like some of these bottom dwellers just get the worst draws for their
Yeah,
schedule.
it's crazy to think about how TCU was in the national championship just a couple of years ago. I mean, when I think back to a quarterback like Javon Boykin back in the day. I talk like I'm super old, but that was what, like 2015. So they've always had a pretty good running of quarterbacks at TCU because Andy Dalton went there as well. So it'll be interesting to see if
Pipeline.
Jaden Craig can be, yeah, like they got a good pipeline there. We'll see if what's Max Duggan do, by the way? Is he on he's in the NFL, right? He's on a team. Who's
No
he
clue.
on?
Let's take a
He's on the
look.
Chargers. That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. So they do got some NFL pipeline there. We'll see with Josh Hoover. I'm assuming he'll end up somewhere as well in the NFL draft, especially in the Indiana offense. You never know. He could emerge as like a top first round pick, to be honest, under Signetti. So okay. I think that's enough of TCU. Let's move on to our next tier. And our next tier is going to be the more, I don't want to put this at contending teams, but we'll put them at like the solid teams tier. And I want to kick this one off with Arizona State. Now, Arizona State, you look at them last year, they went 8-5 with losses to Arizona, Houston, Utah, Mississippi State, and Duke in the Sun Bowl. So all their losses were pretty respectable. I mean, they did get blown out to Utah. But the thing about Arizona State, they were the one team outside of Oregon in the college football playoff to beat Texas Tech and beat that defense. So you got to give them credit there. I feel like Arizona State has the history of showing up in big games. And when they had the quarterback in Sam Levitt and the wide receiver in Jordan Tyson and even in running back Raleek Brown last season, a lot of things were possible when they were all healthy and on the field. However, going into 2026, none of those 3 guys are on this team anymore. So it's going to be a little bit more of a new turnover. Running back position is going to be my biggest question mark. Their starting is going to be Kyson Brown because Raleek Brown transferred over to Texas. So Kyson is a guy that has just 100 yards, I believe. Yeah. Or no, sorry, he had just 500 yards. He's their leading back right now. So he's got to prove a little more. At quarterback, it's going to be Cutter Boley, sorry. Started 10 games at Kentucky, 12 interceptions in those 10 games, so he's got to clean it up a little bit. He's a standard pocket passer. He can show a little bit of mobility, nothing like Sam Levitt, however. I don't think he's got that dog like Levitt does. No diss on him. That's just more of a compliment to Levitt. So I think this Kenny Dillingham, head coach Kenny Dillingham, should, when you look at this offense and how it should be ran the first couple weeks, I mean, they do got a Texas A&M week 2, so they got to get off to a hot start. It's going to be a lot of screens. You got to lean on that run game, but it's kind of tough to lean on that run game when the running back talent isn't what it once was. At wide receiver, they do got weapons like Omarion Miller. He's a first-round type of talent. He took the Jordan Tyson route, so he transferred over from Colorado just like Tyson. And I know he's working around some injuries, but he's very good route runner. He can be a guy that we're looking at in the 2027 NFL draft as a first-round wide receiver. They also got Reed Harris from Boston College. Jalen Moss, when healthy, is pretty good. He was their second wide receiver after Jordan Tyson last year. So now you're looking at him, he's in the wide receiver 3 spot behind those 3 guys. So they got a really, really good wide receiver core for Cutter Boley. It's just a matter of is he going to throw 12 picks again this year, or is he going to clean things up a little bit, and especially on the offensive line as well, replacing some starting tackles. And then just touch on the defense. A lot of veterans, some good players. There's no stars on Arizona State's defense, but they're all going to be pretty good. So my, I would say, impact player, player to watch, it's going to be at the quarterback position. Can Cutter Boley prove that he can at least be 80% of what Sam Levitt was last season? I think that's kind of fair.
Yeah. Actually, in my notes, I had that it was still a competition. I read that it was most likely going to be Cutter Boley, but
Yeah.
they did bring in a bunch of guys. Mike Keene, Michigan transfer, and then like a 4-star Jake Fetty. So
I saw Boley won. Maybe they didn't announce that they officially won the job, but he's the guy. He's going to be the guy week 1. That's
Yeah.
what all the reports are.
Yeah, I guess like you touched on most of the personnel. I would say like player to watch, definitely Omarion Miller.
Why don't you talk about the schedule because I know they have a pretty tough schedule.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, you mentioned week two. It's not that just they play and they have to go to College Station.
Hmm.
So I think you could just pencil that one in as a loss. Then that right after is the London week. So that's a brutal 2 game stretch. They go, they have to go to Lubbock and to Provo. So on the road against Texas Tech and BYU. Then they end the season across the country to Orlando to play UCF, and then they have the rivalry game against U of A in Tucson. So
Hmm.
the schedule's brutal. I think this is probably the worst one in the Big 12. I have them 6-5. Vegas win total 6-5, -110, -110. So right on the money there. Um, and then just something I wanted to bring up. I know you want to go quick here, but uh, does Kenny Dillingham kind of regret not taking the job in Ann Arbor? It was a magical season when they made the playoff. You could argue they should have beat Texas, but is he starting to have second thoughts about not taking the Michigan job? Just something to think about there.
Something to think about. That's fair. All right, like I said, I want to move through these quick so we can get to the top half. Let's go over to Arizona, ASU's rival, and I want to start there. So last year they went 9-4. They lost to Iowa State, BYU in double OT, Houston, and they lost to SMU in the Holiday Bowl. They did beat Arizona State last season. I feel like usually ASU's winning that game. Head coach, it's going to be Brett Brennan in his third season. He had a great bounce back year, I would say. And they're at the defensive coordinator. That's who I want to highlight, Danny Gonzalez. He's going to be the key to this team, as we'll talk about why, because the offense should be good. But their Arizona's defense, their secondary was very, very sound. They had some good NFL talent. They lost some of those guys. 4 out of the 5 guys got drafted this season, but they're bringing back Javion Cole. He's going to be their stud corner. I think he's the headliner of the team. He's probably a top 15 corner in the country, I would say. And Danny Gonzalez is putting these pieces and having guys like a Javion Cole emerge into a top talent with some of the ways that he's able to highlight these guys and put them in the correct spots and roles. I would say they think about Arizona. They allowed 9 passing touchdowns last season and picked over 20 and had over 20 interceptions. These guys were all ball hogs. It's just, can they replace some of the talent they lost? That's going to be the key for them because their offense should be very sound with quarterback Noah Fafita. Now, Noah Fafita is a guy that many of you, especially if you're listening, a lot of you listeners out there, Noah Fafita is the guy that many of you think Trinidad Chambliss is. Why do I say that? Noah Fafita is a top 10 quarterback in the nation, in my opinion, 100%. Flying under the radar for no reason. I mean, fourth year starter, you can make the jokes that he's old. Yeah, he's a little bit old, but he's got a lot of experience. Last year, the thing that really impressed me was he just distributed the ball because his sophomore season, it felt like he was just kind of picking Tedorona McMillan and throwing it, saying, fuck it, he's Tets down there somewhere type, and just force feeding him all the time. Took a step back here when he didn't have that star receiver and was able to just hit all of his playmakers, take what the system's giving him, and that's where he really was. Really excelled in that. And I think that Arizona's always going to have a chance to win with him, obviously. But the thing with Fafita, like I said, is he pushes the ball downfield, but doesn't have a lot of turnover where he plays. He had the 12th. He ranked 12th in big time throw rate last season, but he was very low in turnover worthy play rate. So he's elusive as well. I know he gets knocked on his sides. That's why I kind of brought the Trinidad Chambliss comp up a little bit. He's a guy, man. He's a very slept on quarterback. I know his wide receivers, some of the wide receiver talent that they got, like Chris Hunter and it's Sniv. I forget his name off the top of my
Trace
head.
Spivey.
Trace. Okay, yeah. They're already advocating him for Heisman. I mean, they got some Heisman propaganda pushing out. I think he's got a Heisman billboard somewhere in Tucson. So I'm very high on Noah Fafita. I like him this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. The Trinidad Chambliss hate is from you is just out of control.
It's not hate. Hey, I'm not hating.
It is hate.
There's no hate.
Hate.
I'm just saying. Noah Fafita is who a lot of you think Trinidad Chambliss is.
All right. Yeah. We'll just move on from that one. As far as the defense, I mean, you mentioned it, led the nation, 31 takeaways last year, 2.4 a game, 22 of them were interceptions. So that's one of the best units in the Big 12. Yeah, you hit Brett Brennan. Really good bounce back year last year. So it's been 2 years since Shedfish took the job in Washington. So we'll see what happens. They lost the bowl game last year to SMU. Don't know once bowl games always have an asterisk next to them now. Schedule. They finished last year really strong. Kind of the opposite of some of the other groups we touched on. They finished 5-0 after starting 4-3. And then this year, I mean, key games include. This is an interesting one. Week 2, like an early conference game. We noted some of those in the ACC, but this for Arizona, they go to BYU week 2. They go to Texas Tech. Week 9, week 6, they go to Morgantown across the country, and then week 12 they go to Kansas State. So that's a tough draw. I have them finishing 7-5, and I have maybe 8-4. They have to play in like literally the toughest environments in the conference. And then, as we mentioned with ASU, U of A gets the rivalry game at home this year to end the season. Vegas win total 7.5, so like right on the money, kind of with what I said. And then if you were ridiculously high on them, maybe like Sam and Noah Fafita, them to make the college football playoff, you're looking at plus 1,400. So
okay. Yeah, I'm not saying this is a team that's going to be competing for the college football playoff, but I think that if Noah Fafita has the year that he should, putting up a lot of high numbers, he's definitely a person that we're including in some Heisman conversations potentially. I know that there's a little bit of question marks at wide receiver, but I think they have enough talent there for him to distribute the ball as well like he did last season. So that's why I like Arizona in a sense, but they're solid. I don't know if they'll necessarily be contending. All right, let's move on to our next team, though, and let's go to Kansas State with quarterback Avery Johnson. I every time I think about Kansas State, it's like I remember the opening overseas game last year, which was in Dublin versus Iowa State, and Avery Johnson, I was pretty high on him. Looked a little sloppy towards the end. I know it was rainy. Kansas State's got some playmakers. What's your take on Kansas State? What's fans expect from them this season?
yeah, well, I thought you were going to mention this, but also at the end of that Dublin game after they lost, his family
Dad
played WWE outside.
Yeah.
So
yeah, his dad was his dad got into a fight with his brother, or they both got into a fight with people.
It was the Johnsons.
Johnsons.
They were getting after it. Just an awful look, and then that was kind of an indictment of Kansas State's season, what it was going to look like.
Yeah.
That being said, I think for me, just trying to go off the top of my head here, I think this is my favorite hire in this head coaching cycle. Colin Klein, K-State alum, was a great quarterback in Manhattan, maybe one of the best that they've ever had. He comes over from Texas A&M. He was the offensive coordinator for the last 2 years. Led the Aggies to the college football playoff last year with Marcel Reed. I'm not a big Marcel Reed guy, but I think Colin Klein kind of put him in some environments to succeed, and I think you're going to see a similar thing with Avery Johnson this year. As I said, Colin Klein played at K-State, played under Bill Snyder, who the stadium's named after, and Chris Kleiman. Avery Johnson, 26 games as a starter, nearly 7,000 total yards and 70 touchdowns. He had some turnover problems early on. Last year, he kind of figured it out a little bit. And I'm just really high on that duo of Klein and Johnson. I think this is the most intriguing team in the Big 12. Something to highlight, just offensively, personnel-wise, O-line completely rebuilt. So you have 4 new starters. The one thing, you have a bookends left tackle. John Pastor, 6'6", 302, all Big 12 last year. So at least, at the tackle position, you have someone you can count on there. Running back, they bring back Joe Jackson, ran for 300 yards last year. And then they added Rodney Fields Jr., comes over from Oklahoma State, kind of like a pass-catching back. Think he could be dynamic. Something we're going through these breakdowns. A lot of Oklahoma State guys ending up at random places. In the wide receiver room, you have Jaron Tibbs. He's kind of like the main returner, like 600 yards last year, 47 catches. And then they bring in Josh Manning from Mizzou. I believe the quarterback coach came from Mizzou, so it could be some of that. He's 6'3", big body receiver. And then Isaiah Williams comes with Klein from A&M. And then they have a freshman coming in. I forget his name off the top of my head. Maybe like one of the more, just something to maybe, I'm like stumbling over my words here, be excited about for the offense. Tight end, Garrett Oakley. I was looking for a returner, one of the good returners. Had 6 touchdowns last year. I think he led all receivers touchdowns last year. So giving Avery Johnson, kind of that blanket over the middle could be beneficial for him. Defensively, coordinator comes with Klein from A&M. Jordan Peterson, obviously have to replace a lot. just completely rebuilding the unit. They do bring back some production in the secondary, and that's about it. Portal adds Big 12 Freshman of the Year and Wendell Gregory, edge guy from Oklahoma State, and then they bring over some other pieces, especially at the linebacker position. And then this is the most important part with me leading the segment off with I'm super high on Kansas State. The schedule. They avoid BYU and Texas Tech. Really like key game. The only one that I really have down here is at Houston week 6. I have them finishing 9-3. Tough place to play. Going to Manhattan, Kansas, never easy. Them and Oklahoma State just remind me of some of that vintage Big 12 football where games are 52-49. And I think we'll kind of get back to that a little bit in Manhattan this year. Vegas win total 8.5. So Vegas kind of agrees with me in that sense. Plus 1,600 to win the Big 12. I think it could be worth a flyer. And if you give me a second, I just want to see the whole schedule. Yeah, really weak non-con. Nichols, Washington State, Tulane, and then they open up Big 12 play with Cincinnati. So I think they should start 4-0. That's when they have the Houston game. That's at home, but like, so say they start out 5-0 there. They have Kansas the week after, obviously a rivalry game. Really like the toughest game here is just at ASU maybe, but like like I said, they avoid BYU, they avoid Texas Tech, and I just think a lot of it's just a favorable draw. They don't have any like tough stretches. Yeah, so I'm high on K-State. If you were looking for someone else who could maybe sneak in the Big 12 title game and give Tech or BYU a run for their money, I think K-State is that team.
Okay. That wraps up with K-State, and I think we're going to move into our next tier, which I'll call the contending tier. I'm going to put Texas Tech in its own tier because kind of like Miami, they're easily the favorites to win this conference for a right reason. They are just above everyone else. But we got 4 teams that are going to be in this contending tier, and I want to kick it off with, so if you haven't paid attention to early this week, the AP poll, preseason AP poll has dropped. And if you look at them, they got 4 teams from the Big 12 on the AP poll. Texas Tech is at 12. Then you start by Houston at 23, Utah's at 21, BYU's at 14. Now, there's a team that we haven't talked about yet on the show that also isn't in the AP poll. If you can guess who that is, it is Oklahoma State. Now, when you look at Houston, Utah, BYU, I mean, Houston and Utah above Houston is a little bit of a like kind of surprising in a sense, but also not including Oklahoma State. I get why the voters didn't include them because there's a lot of unknown, a lot of transfers, especially when you look at them last year. They did go 1-11, so it's hard to justify that. But on paper, when you look at who Oklahoma State brought in, it's hard not to think that this isn't a real contending team in the conference. I think there's no reason that Oklahoma State can't be up there top 3 with Texas Tech and BYU. So, of course, they added, we'll start with quarterback Drew Mestemaker, who I think is going to be, he's a borderline top 10 quarterback in the country, I would say. You watch him last season, a very NFL-ready guy that projects really well, very lanky, kind of like tall, lanky with an insane arm, can throw it to all parts of the field. They also brought in his best wide receiver, Wyatt Young. He was 3rd in the nation in receiving yards last season. He will probably be maybe number 2. I would say if you looked at all the receivers in the Big 12, he's probably like number 2. Maybe the number 1 is the guy from Houston, I would say, we'll talk to in a second here. And then, of course, Caleb Hawkins at running back. He had 29 total touchdowns as a true freshman last season. That broke the freshman record. They brought in a lot of transfers. I think on defense, that's where the little bit the unknowns is. But that's Ethan Waslowski. He's going to be kind of the key guy. He was also really good at North Texas. And you brought in a lot. So these North Texas transfers pretty much all went to Oklahoma State, at least all the good guys. If they didn't, it was all over. Like I said, they were 0-9 in conference last year. Their only win on the season was at UT Martin, and then they lost 11 straight. So it would be really a remarkable turnaround for this program if they did compete with the Texas Tech BYU. But I'm telling you, with some of the studs they brought in with North Texas, I think they're a team to do it. So why don't you talk about the coaches, as I didn't mention yet, and maybe some other pieces on the team, as far as Oklahoma State here, Joe?
Yeah. Head coach Eric Morris, as Sam said, comes over from North Texas. They're the most prolific offense in the country last year. You mentioned all the pieces. Maker, 4,400 yards. Caleb Hawkins, 29 total touchdowns, 1,400 yards. Wyatt Young, 1,200 yards. I mean, so bringing over those three. I don't want to say that they'll just step in and the transition will be seamless, but I think it'll be something close to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super high on this group. Brings over both coordinators. In my notes here, I have the North Texas Cowboys or the Oklahoma State Mean Green, whatever you want to call them, because it's going to be like that.
66. Well, like Penn State and Iowa State, to be honest, like with the coaching turnaround and players coming over.
66 departures, 53 incomers. I mean, you mentioned the big three. That's what the offense will come down to. Defensively, literally all my notes I had too was Wazlowski, 113 tackles last year. So complete overhaul there. I mean, we'll see what happens. It can't be much worse than last year. The one thing I'll highlight on, I heard it on a podcast this week, kind of talking about Oklahoma State in depth because they're getting a little trendy now with people being high on them.
Mm-hmm.
Something came out where it was like Gundy he had like a rough 2 years prior to last year getting fired, and apparently the money kind of dried up. They weren't getting as much money. The rosters weren't as good. Apparently everyone's in on Eric Morris. So apparently they have a lot more resources now. So. Well, super interested to see, what's happening in Stillwater if they can get back to being one of the premier teams of the conference.
I don't see, like I said, when you got a quarterback like Drew Messamaker, I was really high on him all season. Anything's possible. I know it's when North Texas played, they were on prime time, and they actually had some playoff buzz, right, as a G6 team, a G5 team, I guess it now is. They were playing. Who did they play? Was it US?
South Florida?
I think it was South Florida. Yeah, they
Friday
played
night.
South Florida. Friday night at their home stadium, and you watch Drew Messamaker. He struggled that game, right? He threw multiple interceptions, and that was like kind of his first primetime national televised game, especially at North Texas, and it was a bit of a letdown. But I like the way that he bounced back. So if you were someone that maybe that was the only North Texas game that you saw from him, and maybe you're not a believer, trust me, this guy is a very NFL projectable quarterback. He can absolutely sling it, and I'm very excited to see him do it on a more higher stage because we're going to see it week 2. Oklahoma State's going to host Oregon. That's going to be a pretty good game to watch. I know that Oregon right now is an 18.5 favorite in that, but if I'm betting on the game, I'm low-key taking the points there because gamble on some of the playmakers that they brought in there. I feel like they could definitely put up a fight, I would say, in that.
Yeah,
matchup.
And there's something I just want to highlight in terms of like if you're not believing in Messamaker, Hawkins and Young and whatever because he's coming from the American Conference. If you look at the conference last year, North Texas, Eric Morris, and everyone I just mentioned, Tulane, John Summerall, South Florida, Alex Golish, Navy's in the conference. Like there's good football in that conference. So I just think the idea of being like he's in the American, they were in the American last year, the conference sucks. That's a lazy take. The conference was probably the best like non-P4 last year. And then they had a chance. They played Tulane in the title game, I believe. If they would have won, they could have been that second G5 team in the playoff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm super high on them, and I'm super excited to see what happens. You mentioned the schedule besides Oregon, and that's not an easy trip for Oregon. When we had Dom on, he was talking about that, how that game will be at 9 a.m. West Coast time.
Yeah.
12 p.m. start in Stillwater, or 11 a.m. start in Stillwater. Week 4, they go to Morgantown. Week 7 at Houston, and then they get Tech at home later on in the year. I have them going 8-4. I just expect this to be one of the best offenses in the country yet again. And then I kind of mentioned it with K-State, but I think this is the epitome of vintage Big 12. They're going to score a lot of points, and they're going to let up a lot of points. So we'll see what happens. Win total in Vegas, 6.5. So, like I said, I'm high on them, and I'm super excited to see what Eric Morris and crew does this year in Stillwater.
100%. I think that's going to be a team that, especially me and you, are going to be following pretty closely, and we'll be talking about them a lot this season, hopefully, good or bad.
All right, let's get a polo.
Yeah, yeah. Let's move on to the next team, and we'll go by what the AP poll has, and so that means Houston. They are currently ranked number 23rd right now in the preseason AP poll. So a lot of people are high in Houston. You look at them last season; they were 10-3. Their 3 losses were in Big 12 Conference play to Texas Tech, West Virginia. They got upset pretty badly, and TCU. They did beat LSU in the Texas Bowl. Big reason for that and their success last season was that defense. They were 26th in EPA per play. They brought back 3 starters in the secondary. You look at someone like Will James. He's been a stud. He's kind of like their Swiss Army knife, can move all over the field. I highlight a transfer that they got from Stephen F. Austin. He was the best FCS corner. His name is Jalen Mayo, top 20. So this team is going to be a top 20 coverage unit as well. I think when you look on the offensive side, that's where there's a little bit of question marks. And by the way, before I get in the offense, head coach Willie Fritz. So he's going in on his. Do you know what season he's going in on? Third. So he's going on his third season. And as I touch on the offense, it's going to be quarterback Connor Wigman. He's kind of a fascinating guy because he was recruited as this 5-star to Texas A&M. He's a baseball player, actually. When he first committed there, he was intending on playing shortstop for the Aggies on the baseball team. But he's shifted to football only. He redshirted his freshman year. He was actually on the third string on the depth chart. And then he got some playing time in 2024, I believe it was, in the latter half of the season. He came in his first appearance. I want to say it was LSU, but anyway, I know he had like almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was looking very elite. He played the rest of the games for him. Next season, he comes in as like their starter, but he got hurt. He got a lower body injury, and ever since then, it was kind of his time was over in Texas A&M. He lost the job to Marcel Reed, and then had to transfer over to Houston. So he's got a lot of talent. The only issue I see with him is that he's not very good against the blitz. Okay, so when teams fire that pressure towards him, he kind of gets frantic and bails out and not as accurate, I would say. So I think that's something to watch for him if he can improve on that, because he's got a star wide receiver in Amari Thomas. Thomas is, like I mentioned before, he's going to be the best wide receiver in the conference. He had 12 touchdowns last season. He's a guy that will get open. I mean, when you got a playmaker on that on your team, all you need to do is look where if he's got one-on-one coverage. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of defenses will be double teaming Amari Thomas, but any when in doubt, I'm assuming that Wigman's just going to look for him and throw it up on any like third down scenario, or you need to go get 10 yards. So I think this offense could be good. It's almost like Connor Wigman, can he stay calm under pressure? And with that, of course, it's the offensive line's responsibility to protect him. And last year, it kind of killed them. They got some pretty good additions from G6 schools, like G5 school. There, I always mix that up. Is it G5, G6? Why do I always mess
G5? But
yeah.
it used to be 6 because there used to be 5 power conferences.
Yeah, dude, I've been messing that up. But all right, G5. So they got a lot of G5 franchises. They got the guy from Tulane, Toledo, Miami, Ohio. Those 3 have got to be the key on this offensive line to protect their quarterback. What do you think about Houston this season? What's your take on
Yeah, well, I'm glad you introduced Connor Wigman with some question marks, because they landed the highest recruit in the history of the program, Kayshawn Henderson, quarterback, first quarterback in the class, 4th overall prospect in the class. Like I said, the highest recruit in the history of the program, and that kind of just highlights the excellence of Willie Fritz. I think he's an outstanding football coach. What he did at Tulane, and then you saw last year at Houston, they won 10 games. That obviously includes the bowl win against LSU. I'm high on Houston, but that comes with like an asterisk because it's as far as the quarterback takes them. I have questions about him. That's why I highlighted the freshman. You kind of hit all the personnel guys. Amari Thomas, wide receiver, almost 1,000 yards last year, 12 touchdowns. Running back piece I thought was interesting. Mekhi Hughes, I believe it is. I believe that's how you say his first name. He was a Tulane guy with Willie Fritz, I believe. Had a really good year there, and then I think he went to Oregon last year.
Okay.
And now he's back with Willie Fritz, so that's a guy to keep eyes on.
Let me ask you this. So as you look at Houston's schedule, they got a big game week 3 against Texas Tech. That's going to be Texas Tech's toughest opponent as we talk about them. But Texas Tech's schedule is pretty light. Houston's going to be their biggest opponent at home. What do you look for in that game? Do you think there's any shot that Houston pulls off that upset? What do you think about there?
Yeah, I mean, probably not, to be honest with you. I think Texas Tech
same thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech's significantly better than Houston. I think that game, if that wasn't like both of their first conference games, maybe like, that spot for Texas Tech is sandwiched in between like a tough road game after or something like that. Then they catch them sleeping. If you remember last year, I think Texas Tech's first conference game was Utah, and Utah was a big trendy pick, and Texas Tech smashed them.
Yeah.
So could be a similar spot to that. And my key games, I have that noted, and then I have week 12. They go to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
From an overall sense, just because I believe in the head coach and the schedule isn't anything crazy, I have them kind of doing the same thing as last year, 9-3, 8-4 maybe. And I will just say, keep your eyes on the backup quarterback situation, because if Connor Wegman's anything, if he's turning the ball over again, he had 9 interceptions last year. If that becomes a problem, if his footwork's at it, like that was a problem with him a lot. As the blitz comes, his feet get out of control. Like I said, highest recruit in the history of the program. So just keep eyes on that.
Okay, fair. All right, let's move on to our next team that is currently ranked 21st in the preseason AP poll, and that is the Utah Utes. Last season, they went 11-2 with their 2 losses to Texas Tech and BYU. The BYU game, Holy War, they lost by 1 point, pretty tight game, and Texas Tech was also another home game where, I mean, you saw Baron Morton, Tech's starting quarterback, go down. Will Hammond was forced in there, and Utah still just couldn't close it out. They had no answers for that defense. And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty disappointed by Utah. I was very high on them coming into the year because their offensive line was probably top 3 in the nation. I like Devin Dampier. I still like Devin Dampier, and I thought they had a lot of playmakers around him. So for them to miss out on a playoff, I thought that was their opportunity, especially now that we're seeing Kyle Whittingham, where he went to Michigan without a new head coach. There's a lot of question marks there. So to touch on the head coach position, so you got Morgan Scaley. He was the DC. He was promoted to head coach. They also lost their offensive coordinator. His name was what's the offensive coordinator name? Jason Beck. Jason Beck. So he went over to Michigan as well. So you got no Kyle Whittingham. This is the end of the era in Utah. He was in Utah for 32 years, 21 seasons as a head coach. So it's going to be a very different look for Utah. They also lost someone like John Henry Daly on defense. That's a hard man to replace. And I want to stay on that O-line, like I kind of mentioned, because Utah, at least under the Whittingham era, was very in the trenches. They were going to win at the line of scrimmage and just bully you. I mean, this season, I have no idea what they're going to look like up front. They lost their 2 premier talent at both tackles in Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano to the NFL draft. I don't know who's really going to step in and replace them. I don't know if they have the talent to do so. As far as their weapons, they did bring back their top 3 running backs. But again, if you don't got the offensive line to bully up front, how effective are they going to be? They're probably not as good as last season. Devin Dampier is still a great dual threat quarterback. I thought he showed some flashes as a passer. Again, the Texas Tech game was a little disappointing, but with another season under his belt, I think that they're going to stay in games. He's a good enough quarterback to do so. As we talk, is there really, I know they host BYU in the Holy War. I'm just not sure if they're built to compete with Texas Tech, because if they couldn't beat them last year, I thought that was the season where they really should have.
Yeah, completely agree. You I think it was this last season was the year for Utah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that week. It was week 4 now that I'm looking at it. When Tech came to their place, Big Noon was there, and they got embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of, I want to say before that point, Devin Dampier might have had some soft Heisman buzz.
Yeah, he did.
And then I was just thinking of this. If I asked you at this point, you got to pick one of Devin Dampier or John Mateer. Do you think that's a dumb question?
I'm probably going John Mateer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think before that Tech game last year, because they were both Heisman guys.
Well, see, if you asked me that latter half of the year, maybe week 12, I might say Devin Dampier. I mean, before the Tech game, because John Mateer was also leading Heisman, so before he got hurt. But it's a good comparison right now, I would say.
Yeah,
because Devin Dampier.
I don't know why I thought of that, but I did. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to bring that up, and then you mentioned the personnel changes in terms of the coaching staff. I guess Scaley, that's the path Kyle Whittingham took. I think when Urban left Utah, Whittingham was the DC. Gets the head coaching job. He's there for 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
Being the head coach at 21 years at anywhere, even though it is Utah, is quite the feat. So we'll see how they adjust. I don't have too much on Utah. Like I told you, I kind of left that one to you.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Yeah. I honestly, I didn't even, I forgot Devin Dampier's still there. So that'll be exciting to watch at least.
Yeah. All right. So with that, let's get into what we've been waiting for this whole entire episode. It is BYU and Texas Tech, the top 2 teams in the conference, the 2 teams that are at least right now projected to fight for that playoff spot from the Big 12. If you remember last year, BYU, of course, missed out on the playoff. It was very controversial because they had 1 loss in the regular season. They lost to Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game, and the committee felt that they didn't impress well enough in that game, which I agreed with them. I didn't think BYU looked like a playoff team last season, but judging their record and and how dominant they were in the regular season record-wise, I could see why a lot of fans were disappointed at it. BYU this season, we'll start with them. They are currently ranked, like I said, 14th in the preseason AP poll. They're bringing back a lot of talent. So quarterback Bear Bachmeier, he was the only. We'll start with the head coach, actually. Make sure to start with the head coach. My bad. Kalani Sitake, so he was such a good coach. You saw him generate some Penn State buzz. He was definitely one of the premier talent, and then BYU extended him. So he's back. I mean, I think he's probably the best coach. I would probably take Kalani Sitake over Joey McGuire. Might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think that he's shown that he can improve a program like he has. I want to look at someone like the offensive coordinator, Aaron Roderick. I think he's key to this BYU team and this BYU offense. Roderick's the guy that got Zach Wilson to a number 2 overall pick. He developed Jake Retzlaff in 2024. He really guides his quarterback at a high level. He knows how to tailor their strengths to identify like based on the pace of play of the game. Like he knows when to lean on the run game a little bit. He knows when we can attack downfield. He just got a great feel, and so that's why I thought you saw a lot of success from freshman quarterback Bear Bachmeier, who coming into the season I didn't think he expected to play at all. Right, like he was kind of forced in there a month before the season because Jake Retzlaff had the whole sexual assault case on him, and next thing you know he's not playing. And it's interesting too with BYU because you even saw it with Parker Kingston when he had the sexual abuse case, which was interesting because those charges got dropped. So he's not playing this year, right? Because I saw he got cleared of all charges, but yeah, he's gone. So that's also kind of a question mark on the BYU because he was BYU's leading wide receiver last year. If you missed the story, he had some sort of a rape charge against him, got dropped. But anyways, he's not with the program anymore, so they lost him. That's a huge loss. Their other wide receiver, their wide receiver 2 is not there anymore, so their number 1 wide receiver is going to be JoJo Phillips. He only had 160 yards last season, and he was their wide receiver 3. So I don't know if they have enough on the perimeter for Bear Bachmeier to really air it out, and that's the thing. He kind of struggled with that in a sense last year. Barry Bachmeier, yes, he had 3,500 total yards of offense, but it was more on the ground. That's where he was really, really dangerous, especially that duo of him and LJ Martin. LJ Martin is BYU's starting running back. I think that he's a top 3 running back in the nation. Really, really high on him, especially if he can stay healthy. I know he's recovering well from his shoulder surgery that he got, but he just can stay balanced, stays very low to the ground, powerful runner. Just kind of got that like cockiness to him that I like. And if you need 2-3 yards on the ground, he's going to go pick it up, especially behind this BYU offensive line that is very built. You got 2 really good stars at center and offensive guard. I like how this offense can play in the run game. It's just I have question marks in the air attack with the lack of wide receiver talent. And Bear Bachmeier just needs to show a little bit that he can deal with the pressure, which being a true freshman last year, it's understandable. He's not going to be perfect. So maybe as a sophomore, I'm looking for him to take that leap. Then just to touch on the defense, they got a pretty good secondary. Someone like cornerback Evan Johnson, you can argue that he was the best cornerback in the Big Ten. He had 5 picks last year, probably the top 10 corner in the nation almost. So yeah, what do you think about BYU?
Yeah, I'm high on Brigham Young, and they're my pick to win the conference this year. Feels like if not this year, when. Just starting with Kalani Sitake, he is the best coach in the conference, and you have to give him that nod over Joey McGuire. You just have to pay respect. He's 84-45 at BYU, going into his 11th year. You saw at this point, it's not a thing that only some people know about. I mean, Penn State literally tried everything they could to get him. And honestly, I don't know if that would have been a good fit. So I'm happy he stayed in Provo. In terms of Bear Bachmeier, like you said, gets thrown into the fire a month before the season. You got this quarterback wearing number 47. It's like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. He threw for 3,000 yards last year. 26 total TDs. Obviously, you alluded to the fact that he probably needs to become a more proficient passer and maybe not be so reliant on getting out of the pocket and running the football a little bit. But as a freshman, I think it was a super impressive campaign for him. Offensive line returns 3 guys, including Andrew Gentry, Bryce Mitchell. And then there's some newcomers. I've seen something about this guy named like Packy Finau from Washington. Apparently he's been all right. Running back, you mentioned LJ Martin, stud, 1,300 yards last year, 12 touchdowns. The receiver room, you did forget Tiger Bachmeier, Bear's brother. And then there is a transfer from Oregon. He's 6'6", Kyle Casper. we'll see if that hits, because that would be huge for them. And then defensively, the one thing I would want to add is they lose the coordinator Jay Hill. He took the defensive coordinator job for Kyle Whittingham in Ann Arbor.
Mhm.
He super good at Brigham Young. It was interesting last year. They were almost like too reliant on the turnover. They got a bunch of them. There was like games where they were outgained in yards wise, but they just kept winning the turnover battle. And then yeah, just going into the schedule as we all know, 2 losses last year. Both of them happened to be the Big 12 champions, Texas Tech. This year, might be one of the, like my favorite games, or one of my favorite spots on the schedule across all conferences this year. Notre Dame going to Provo week 7. I think that's fascinating. It'll be super interesting to see like what that line ends up being. And then right after they have to go to Orlando to play UCF. And this year the rivalry game is in Salt Lake. But overall, super high on them. No Tech, obviously. I have them finishing 11-1 and undefeated in the conference. And then we'll see. Like in that Big 12 title game, they'll probably be short underdogs, Texas Tech. But the win total of 8.5, I think, is far too low.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that, to be honest. So I think that's like a strong play. Plus 300 make.
I was going to say, if BYU, if they lose to Notre Dame and they host Notre Dame, they're going to lose that game. I'm sorry. They lose to Notre Dame, and then they got to travel at Utah for the Holy War. If they drop Notre Dame and Utah, and they're at 2 losses, do you think they make the playoff with what happened last season? I think obviously more is going to have to come into that with how they looked in the other games.
It'll be a situation like Alabama in the SEC championship last year. Mm-hmm. And everyone was saying as long as they don't get embarrassed, they'll be fine. They ended up still making, and they got embarrassed. Mm-hmm. Does the committee give Brigham Young the same respect that they give Alabama? Probably not. But that'll be an interesting spot. I think if it's in the Big 12 title, it has to be competitive. They can't get blown out.
Okay, so with that, let's touch on Texas Tech now. You have BYU winning this conference, which I think is absolutely absurd. Tell me, how do you think that BYU is going to move the football against Texas Tech's front 7? Because I'm assuming that you've done your research on Texas front 7. If you think that there's going to be any drop off there just because they lost guys like the David Bailey, Romello Height, Jacob Rodriguez, 0. There's not going to be much of a drop off. Yes, it's hard to replace those guys, but when I look at someone like Austin Romaine, who they got in the transfer portal from Kansas State, when I look at some of their edge rushers that they got, Adam Trick and Trey White, so you got them. You got AJ Holmes, defensive tackle. He's the number 1 defensive tackle in the nation. Jaden Cofield, Ben Roberts at linebacker. They have just so much depth there. It's almost unfair. I don't know how teams are going to really move the football against them. They should be as dominant as they were in 2025. And you look at how do you think BYU is in with the offense on them?
Well, that's the $1 million question. If I could tell you that, verbatim right now, maybe I'd be on the sideline calling plays. That being said, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I honestly don't know if it was on the show, but when we first got on the call, it's just interesting with Texas Tech because everything hit last year. It's not as easy. It's easier said than done, just for all these pieces to come together and for everything to gel. I understand, like the talent defensively is off the charts. I've seen stuff about Trey White. People love him. He dominated the Mountain West last year. You mentioned Adam Trick, Ben Roberts, Sean Curry at linebacker as well. The unit's, it's outstanding when you're looking at the players. It's just a matter of how do they fit. Do they stay healthy? All these guys, a lot of these guys are taking step up in conference. Like, does it all hit the way it did last year? And then regardless, like Will Hammond played well last year, relatively speaking. He's still got like questions to answer in terms of can he put it together for a full campaign.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with our kind of overview on Texas Tech. So you look at them; they are ranked preseason right now, number 12 preseason in the AP poll. Last season they went 12-2. They lost to Arizona State and Oregon, as we said in the playoff. Demolished BYU in the Big 12 title game. Just had no answer for Oregon. And, it was more on Baron Morton. He turned the ball over 4 times. Offense couldn't really do any production. Texas Tech, though, what a year for them. It was the first Big 12 title in school history. They finished 7th in the AP poll. That was the highest ever. best defense in EPA per play since Clemson in 2014, third best run grade. They were just an absolute unit. And like as you alluded to, can they click it all together? I think that they brought back enough talent from the portal and some returning guys to absolutely be as dominant. You look at them on offense, I mean, that's the question for this team. Will Hammond, so they brought in Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. He was expected to really make this team a national title contender. Unfortunately, he gets hit with the gambling addiction. He's betting too much. What pitch is coming next at the Cincinnati Reds game? And yeah, we see Will Hammond. He's got to step up. And Will Hammond has made a couple of appearances last season when Baron Morton was hurt. For example, he stepped in the Utah game, the Arizona State game, and he looked pretty solid. Like it wasn't a bad. Like he was able to deliver the football, made some high level throws. However, he suffered a knee injury versus Oklahoma State, and he's still recovering for it. That's the question for me. So Will Hammond originally on his timeline for his knee injury recovery would be back like week 3. Now Texas Tech is currently rushing him back, so he's ready week 1. I think that is very huge if he's able to play those first 2 non-conference games because they're against some scrubs, right? That way he's ready for week 3 against Houston. So I think it's very important for Will Hammond to get the reps in the first 2 weeks so that his first game coming back isn't against their toughest opponent all year. I think on offense, Texas Tech has the best running back room in the country with the duo they got. The offensive line, they returned 3 all-conference starters. They also added a 5-star center, Sheridan Wilson. I mean, he had the highest pass blocking grade on PFF last season. Offensive their 2 offensive tackles are pretty elite guys. So they're going to be able to run the football. They're going to be able to pass the football with some of their weapons. It's just a matter of they'll be able to. Let me rephrase that. They have enough weapons to pass the football. It's going to be if Will Hammond can get the ball in their hands. And I'm a believer with it. So, like, for me to come on here, this was where I was going back and forth. When you ask if Texas Tech, are they a national title contender? Because that's the real question. Because if Brendan Sorsby was at quarterback, it would be a no-brainer. Yeah, Texas Tech, they are definitely in the contending with now you're bringing in a high-level quarterback, have an elite defense. But all last season, I was on here, maybe not on the show, but at least on my pages, hyping up Will Hammond like he should be the starter over Baron Morton. I was very high on him. I thought that he looked very poised in the games he came in. So for me this year to come in and say, oh, Texas Tech is doomed with Will Hammond, that would be kind of contradicting. So I got to ride with Will Hammond, and I'm going to say that, yes, Texas Tech is a national title contender. I don't see why they can't be, especially with this defense. It's going to be arguably the number 1 defense in the nation. Still think Notre Dame and maybe Oregon has them edged a little bit, but top 3 for sure. I mean, I think those 3 are interchangeable how you put them there. And plus their schedule. I mean, their toughest road games at Baylor. There's no reason this team doesn't go 12-0. I mean, is that a hot take? I mean, yeah, maybe, but like Houston and Baylor, if they beat those, 12-0 is. I mean, I seriously don't think there's a reason in the title game.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's outrageous. End of the year, they go 2 Stillwater, 2 Baylor, back-to-back road games. So they got something to keep eyes on. I just think you're like penciling in Will Hammond just to kind of fire on the offense just completely seamlessly. I understand that was your guy last year. Don't be too stubborn about it.
I mean, did you watch Will Hammond last year though? Did you watch him come into that Utah game off the bench, ice cold, and deliver some elite throws to win that game? He's proved it, man. The injuries has me a little. Is he going to be as? I don't know if the knee injury is impacting his mobility because he showed that he can be a little bit of a dual threat. Is he going to be at full speed like he was? I mean, with people in the modern medicine nowadays, I feel like there's no reason he can't. So maybe you can argue that's the question mark, but I don't see how you can't like for them to, with the defense that they got and the playmakers they have, the quarterback position, all he needs to do is just not turn the ball over and not doing anything extraordinary. It's not like in Arizona where they need Noah Fifita to put the team on their back and drop 4 touchdown passes a game. No, Will Hammond's just gotta almost be like Carson Beck was. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. We'll see how it goes. Like you said, I don't really know what's going on with the knee thing. I don't. It's tough because they have the conference game week 3. But I wouldn't hate just not playing him against Abilene Christian, and then they play Oregon State the next week. Do not rush him back, even if it means him not playing against Houston. The following week, they have another non-conference game against Sam Houston. Get him in there. Just let him get healthy. No need to rush him back. You can lose a conference game if you're Tech, still get to the conference title game, and you have a shot to go to the playoff. I don't know if you mentioned Cam Dickey, but he's a stud.
Running back.
Yeah, 1,100 yards last year. So we'll see, man. Obviously, you mentioned all the guys that they lost. We'll see if it all clicks again.
Here's the thing. So if you're not super bought in on Will Hammond, do you think that this kind of touches on what I mentioned previously when we were talking about Baylor? Would Texas Tech be better if they had DJ Lagway as their quarterback, in your opinion?
It's a phenomenal question. I'm going to say no, because I think probably the quarterback that suits them best is a guy who's only expected to be a game manager. I don't think DJ Lagway is a great fit from them, just like his makeup, with five-star guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like I would say a guy like Will Hammond is probably, the type of piece they need behind center. Now, if DJ Lagway hits, obviously you would take him over Will Hammond. It's just a question of if he does hit. Like DJ Lagway could also be benched by week 7. So
yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question though.
But all right, yeah. So like I said, I have Texas Tech winning this conference. I would say in second place, you can pencil in BYU for me there. And then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I would say Arizona can definitely make some noise. I think Arizona State as well, if we see enough from Cutter Boley. I'm not as high on Houston as a lot of people are. And then same with Utah. There's a lot of unknowns there. So those next 4, I just want to see how the first couple weeks fits for them and just kind of get the vibe of what they're really displaying, and maybe even with the coaching staff, how those all click together and how they run things. But right now, for me, it's just I know Texas Tech is going to be elite and the best team in this conference. After that, yeah, it's going to be BYU, and then I'm not really sure. That's why I'm kind of intrigued by these. That's why I'm pumped that we're getting some early conference games in like week 1, especially in the Dublin, or like week 2, especially. I know Arizona plays. They play a conference game. Who did they play week 2? Is it
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, who does Arizona play week 2? But my point is, like, we're gonna know pretty quickly what these teams are about. So that's why I like this conference, because right now all I know is Texas Tech is going to be the top dogs. In your case, I guess you think BYU.
U of A goes to BYU week 2.
Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Yeah. So that right there, that's gonna be a pretty tough game. We're gonna find out about. I kind of like, yeah, exactly. That's going to be a good game to tune into, especially. But all right, yeah. So we made it through all teams. This was definitely a little bit longer episode than we expected. We're over. I think it's longer than the Big Ten. No, I think we went like 25.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff we had to get through. I mean, like we said, we want to bring a little insights to every single team in the conference. I know we spent a little time in the intro as well, but I think it's well needed so we can have some takes out there on the record, and just whole point with these conference previews as well is for you guys to kind of hear our voices and get a sense of maybe our personalities, our character as we get into the regular season, and we're kind of deep rolling into these things. So if you guys have made it to the end of the episode, make sure you drop a comment, maybe let us know any feedback on things. I mean, we're just starting out. It's our 5th episode, and excited to bring it to you all season long. Do you have any other takes you want to throw out there, Joe? I don't know if you had any other notes or things you wanted to mention before we wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, get ready to know Colin Klein at Kansas State.
Okay.
And then obviously, if you don't already know, Drew Mestamaker, kid's a stud. And I just think Oklahoma State will be like a great watch this year. Like I said, they're going to score a ton of points. They'll probably let up a ton too. So any game they're involved in will be appointment television. And then also just in terms of, I guess, the length of this and like going through it, someone's got to do the research on, these pitiful groups like Colorado and some of these other bottom dwellers. So we'll do it. Just put the information out there. I feel like we do have to get that done.
100%.
So yeah.
I think what I'm going to do after this is I'm gonna drop a video on the top 10 quarterbacks in the Big 12. I know for sure I'm going to put Noah Fafita number 1. Number 2, I'll go Mestamaker. Number 3 though, and after that, still kind of thinking, like, do I go Devin Dampier at 3, or I don't know who else you'd really throw there. Who else am I forgetting? Like maybe Avery Johnson's up there. Yeah, I'm gonna do a little. I'm gonna get those.
Avery Johnson.
But with that, so also we got next week we're going to be doing the SEC. That's going to be our last conference preview, so make sure you're tuned for that. That's going to be our biggest one for sure. Definitely probably another longer episode like this, but yeah, SEC, I mean, we're rolling with the big dogs. Even though the Big Ten's kind of overtaken them, SEC is still SEC, so a lot of fun stuff we're going to get into there. And I'm getting excited to talk about some of the teams like Bama, maybe that we
Keelan Russell, Austin Mack, what's happening?
Exactly. So we'll get some insights in there. I know we're gonna have someone join us for that. My friend Matt. Matt's been on the show a couple times last year, so he's gonna give his take on Bama. He's a big Bama fan.
Okay.
All right, guys. If you made it to the end, like I said, appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and drop us a comment, any feedback, and as we roll into the regular season and get through this full time. I don't even know. I was rambling, bro. It's fine. It's getting too late, dude. I don't even know what I'm saying now.
Burn out.
Appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you
Appreciate
next
it.
week.